All right, let's get started here. Hello, everybody. Whoops, left my thing open there. Yeah, that was from the. Already forgot the name of the game. Fuck. Spaceship game. Terminal Velocity. Okay. Anyway, here we are. We're gonna take the political compass test because I want to see where this thing puts me, and I have my suspicions, right, about where I'm going to end up, but let's go one by one, answer the questions. Or I guess they're not questions, because let's take a look here. So before taking the test, please note that this isn't a survey, and these aren't questions. They're propositions. To question the logic of individual ones that irritate you is to miss the point. Some propositions are extreme and some are moderate. That's how we can show you whether you lean towards extremism or moderation on the compass. Your responses should not be overthought. Now, I'm going to have a little struggle with that because some of these questions I'm not just going to be able to... I'm not going to be able to avoid that because they are sometimes worded in ways that are like... I don't know exactly what they mean, but I'll do my best. Some of them are intentionally vague. Their purpose is to trigger reactions in the mind, measuring feelings and prejudices rather than detailed opinions on policy. Okay. So, just a few propositions to start with concerning no less how you see the country and the world. Okay, if economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve, Jesus Christ, humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations. So I'm gonna make this clear right up front. Biased against corporations. I do not like them on the whole because there have been so many examples of corporations doing terrible things. And an easy example is just like basically just point at the video game industry because they'll be like, oh, we had a record year. By the way, we're laying off 600 people. It's like, what? What do you mean you had a record year? Shouldn't you be not laying off people in that case? What are you doing? Anyway, yeah, so I'm not interested in corporations or their interests, so I'm going to disagree. Also, who's going to be like, corporations are more important than humanity? I guess, like, I don't know, was this question designed to see if you are a corporation? I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. Disagree. Strongly disagree. Because if I believe that my country is doing wrong, why would I support that? I know there are people who will, but I don't understand that perspective. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. That reminds me of that George Carlin bit that stuck with me a lot, which he was talking about... people being proud of, like, being born somewhere. And he's like, that's not an accomplishment. Like, you didn't choose to do that. It's not... It's like... It's something that's out of your control, and also... considering the sheer number of births in the world, look at the population. Being born is not an accomplishment, right? An accomplishment is what you should be proud of, not something that you have no control over. So yeah, I agree, strongly agree. I think it's a dumb thing to just be inherently proud because you were born somewhere. It's like, you didn't choose that. Our race has okay. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. This might surprise viewers. I am actually not in favor of racism, so... Gonna have to disagree on that. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I disagree because that doesn't necessarily mean that, right? Like, I don't know. There's obvious examples, I'm sure, in history of, like, 3 factions that are not, friendly with each other, and 2 of them do not team up. They all just fight each other, right? To assume that friendship is possible with an enemy just because they share an enemy with you, I think is a little naive and foolish, perhaps. This might sometimes be true, though, but I don't think that that's like a good a good thing to live by. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. See, this is the problem with this. It's like I would need an example. I'm a little bit of a case by case guy. What laws are being violated? Is it like, hey, I know it's against international law for us to launch nukes at somebody, but you know, we felt like it was justified. Like, I don't know about that, but like, if it's like, there's some arbitrary reason that you can't step in to like defend, like a smaller, armed country or something. I don't know. I'm gonna disagree because of the fact that, like, I don't know. Yeah, I know I'm overthinking it, but I can't help it. Jesus Christ. It's like kids playing. I mean, I guess it is officially June 1st, which should be the damn beginning of summer, but the months are all weird now. They're not like I remember growing up. I don't live in the same place anymore, but when I was a kid, I don't remember it being hot into, like, fucking October, and now it is, so it's frustrating. Anyway, back to what we're doing. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Okay, I mean, is it talking about, like movies and television and stuff? Because I don't know if I agree with that. Clearly there are people who are... Well, no, because this says information, not like politics. Information and entertainment. I don't know, I mean, infotainment has always been a thing. I don't know, is it worse now? I'm not entirely sure, but I'm just going to put disagree. There's no, like, I don't know option, so... yeah, I don't know. Okay. Economic questions. I am not well-versed in economics, so we'll do our best here. People are ultimately divided more by class and nationality. I agree, and I guess there's no way for me to prove this because it's a hypothetical involving magic, but let's say everyone in the United States woke up tomorrow and we were all one uniform race, and you couldn't identify by looking at a person that they were, like, of a different race than your own. I don't think anything would change in a positive way. I think people would still find ways to divide themselves, or divide each other, rather, and separate, you know, and create others of some sort. And I think class would be a pretty easy go-to, honestly. It would be like, well, we might all look the same now, but I'm still rich and you're still poor, right? Like, yeah, of course, there's always going to be people who just... They gotta have something, right? Something out there that's like the enemy. So yeah, I believe that. And there's countries where the racial makeup is like a lot more uniform, and you know, there's like a huge divide between class. So yeah. Anyway, controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I disagree. I mean, inflation's bad, but unemployment is so unbelievably destructive to human life. For many, many reasons. I think being unemployed, if you're in a position where you're unemployed, but you don't have to be employed, I think it still causes problems. Because, you know, for one thing, you'll develop probably more health issues because you're not really doing much. Unless you are actively going after like a you know, healthier lifestyle, in spite of the fact that you're not like working. But also, like, I think it mentally takes a toll. Unless you're like it depends on the person, of course. But I do think that overall it would be better if more people were employed than currently are. I don't even know what the unemployment rate is right now, but it'd be better if it was lower and more people were working. Let's see here. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. I agree strongly. Corporations are never going to do the right thing on their own, almost ever. And again, I can point at the video game industry. Look how bad like crunch is in the video game industry, and everyone's just like, oh, it's just normal to work 80 hours a week and then get fired. Like at the end of the year when the game comes out, that's not fucking cool. That's terrible, and I hate it. But anyway, let's see. From each according to his ability to each according to his need. That's the that's like the Marx thing, right? I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not like really well educated currently. I mean, I used to know a bunch more about like communism and socialism, but not really like up to speed on it like right now in this moment while I'm doing this. So from what I remember, it's like the idea of like everyone's working, so there's like more stuff, which ideally I guess would be the case, right? I guess it's a good idea, but as many people like to point out, it hasn't really been demonstrated all that well. I like the sentiment, I guess, like, hey, everyone's working and there's like tons of stuff, so everyone's like taken care of. Like, that sounds good, right? Unfortunately, no one's really managing to pull that off and make like this wonderful utopia. The freer the market, the freer the people. I don't know if I agree. The freer the market, the more likely it is, I think, that people are taken advantage of. I guess there's like a true freedom that could be obtained by that, but I think the cost is kind of shitty in some cases. I don't know. I think I disagree, though. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Now, I'm going to disagree, but I'll explain my reasoning. I don't think it's a sad reflection on our society because you can still get water that is free, but bottled water, I mean, that takes like resources to make that, right? You know, the container itself, and then the you know, the packaging and whatever, the manufacturing of it, essentially. So, I mean, yeah, like, if you want, like, water that is conveniently bottled, like, it makes sense that you would buy it, right? Because you can, like I said, still get water for free. Not already in bottles, but, like, what? There should just be an industry that makes water at a loss because it's all just given away? Or bottled water, I mean, not makes water, but land shouldn't be a commodity that is bought and sold. Now, I disagree because I don't know what exactly the proposed alternative would be. Like, how else would you, like, set boundaries and acquire land for either housing or business purposes? Just whoever gets to it first? Or I don't know. I don't know what the counter to this is, right? So I'm going to have to disagree. Let's see here. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. I mean, I guess I agree that it is regrettable, because I'm not going to say that anything should happen to people who like don't contribute to society, even though they're like rich or whatever. Because I don't think you should force rich people to do anything necessarily with their money. Like, they shouldn't be obligated to like create businesses or even donate to charity or anything. But that's more like a judgment of like morality or what you think someone's like societal obligations are. So I don't know, like, I agree that it is regrettable, right? But I don't know. I guess I'll just leave it at that. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. I don't know if it's necessary, because protectionism is, like, putting taxes on like imports and stuff. I keep right-clicking. I don't know why I keep right-clicking. Every time I have a browser open, I just right-click for no reason. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. I don't. I think I disagree. I think people should basically be able to buy things from other countries. Like, I don't know. I don't know too much about it. That's the problem with a lot of this. Is like I don't know. This is coming from a place of like I'm not versed in economics. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I disagree. Social responsibility. Also, I fucking hate shareholders because, I mean, I keep bringing things back to the video game industry, but it seems like shareholders sometimes are responsible for some of the things that people hate about modern gaming. So, the rich are too highly taxed. Disagree. In the United States, when Activision at any point in time could get away with just not paying taxes, that's absurd. So yeah, definitely disagree. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Now, I guess theoretically I agree, but I'm trying to think about like the other aspects of every statement. Right. I know you're not supposed to overthink, but I can't help it, all right? It's my brain. It works the way it works. Because I guess what is the alternative? That the higher standard of medical care that could be paid for just doesn't exist at all? Or that everyone gets the same level of medical care? Because I don't know if that's even feasible without the medical care suffering necessarily. Again, I don't know like enough about the medical care in this country compared to like other countries and everything else. I'm just going to agree because I guess if you can pay and they provide that service, then why not, I suppose. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. I agree. Absolutely. Because if a business is deliberately misleading people, then I feel like there's just like a supreme level of scumminess, and that needs to be fined or some other kind of action should be taken to punish them. Because I don't want businesses feeling like it's okay to mislead people. A genuine free market Jesus Christ. Okay. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Now, the only problem here is it says a genuine free market requires. Now, I think there should be restrictions to prevent monopolies to a certain extent. I don't know that it matters that the fucking whether that makes it a genuine free market. I'm gonna agree, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like that question should be different. Okay, now look at some of your personal social values. All right, let's see what we got here. Abortion, when a woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. And here's a little reasoning on my part for that, and you can argue if you want, that's fine. But the sheer amount of children that are brought up in, like, horrible circumstances, I don't think we necessarily need people bringing into the world children that they don't want. Because there's already too many children who are neglected in bad situations or like in the foster system for their whole life. There's too many reasons why I do not support just recklessly deciding that all children should just that we should encourage people bringing in children that are unwanted in the first place. Don't think that's a good idea. Because adoption is risky and scary, especially after that. Those fucking freaks. The husband had like this really awful like mop hair. Looked like an idiot. They had like like a ton of children, and they abused them horribly. And one of the children went into the foster system and then got adopted by more horrible people. And that's like so fucking awful. And it makes me just feel like sick thinking about like people being like, if you don't want the baby, put it up for adoption, but you need to have it. It's like, fucking dude, I don't think that's a good thing. I think that sucks. We, as a society, we would need better protections for like adopted children to make me feel like that was a reasonable option. And also forcing someone to go through a birth that they don't want to, I think like that's got to take a toll, right? I can't give birth, obviously. I've never given birth, but it seems like a big fucking deal, right? Like, I don't know, if someone doesn't even want to have the child in the first place for whatever reason, I don't know. I feel pretty strongly about that. I refuse to budge on abortion. All authority should be questioned. Now, I agree with this, right? You should never develop an attitude where you blindly accept authority just for its own sake. But I don't think that you should be like pointlessly confrontational with authority unless you have a reason. So yeah, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Maybe not exactly literally, but I do agree that if somebody does something terrible, I think something should be done about it, right? There should be a hit back, right? So, I'm sure they're going to ask me at some point during this. If somebody does something really fucking twisted, like, yeah, give them the chair or whatever, like death penalty. I feel like punishment should be proportionate to some extent. Not in a literal sense, though. Like, if a guy, is convicted of like, cutting a woman's arm off, I don't necessarily mean that we should cut his arm off, like, literally, but I don't know if that'd be funny. like, all right, buddy, you made your own punishment, literally, by committing the act, so now we're going to do it back. Anyway, taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Now, theaters and museums, I wish this wasn't lumped together because I don't treat these things as the same. Because like theaters, I mean, there is something different about seeing a movie in theaters, but you can still watch movies other ways than theaters. Museums, however, can contain things that aren't like it's a one of a kind thing, right? Like this is the fucking the actual physical diary that someone wrote with their hand, and it's like a famous person. Like, that's fascinating. Like, from a historical perspective, it's like, wow, it's like, there it is. Like there's something really cool about that. Not to make it sound like reductive by just saying it's cool, but like, I mean, it's I think it's a valuable thing. I think museums are valuable, and I think they should be maintained. I'm going to say agree. I would say strongly agree if it didn't include theaters, because I don't see those things as equivalent. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. What? Disagree? I'm assuming we're talking like public schools, like mandatory education. Like, yeah, you should show up for the classes. I feel like it's popular to shit on the school system, but I think ideally we should strive to have a more educated population. And if everyone was just like, well, I don't really want to go to school, and then they just don't, right? Like, I feel like that negatively impacts the population in the long run. I'm not saying the school system is perfect, but yeah, I think disagree, of course. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Strongly disagree. I'm, funnily enough, not in favor of segregation. My sexual history would make that clear. I will not elaborate right now. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. I disagree. Because I was raised by parents who did not physically punish me. And I basically never needed to be punished for, like, anything ever. I'm not saying this to say I was a perfect child, but, like, seriously, I never got in trouble at school or never got arrested. I've never been arrested once in my life, and I'm very happy about that. Because getting arrested seems like it sucks. So, yeah, I'd like to keep that way. But yeah, my parents never had to physically discipline me for that to be the case. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Well, this is just like a true statement, right? This isn't saying it's bad or good for children to keep secrets. It's just saying that it's natural. It's like, yeah. This is a weird statement. I was about to say question. It's not a question. It's a statement that is literally true. I don't think this is even arguable. Now, kids are bad at keeping secrets. They will totally out somebody's secret without even necessarily meaning to. But yeah, kids keep secrets or try to. Now, I don't think it's good for them to keep certain types of secrets, of course. If they're having inappropriate interactions with somebody, they should tell their parents. But that's why you need to educate your children. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be criminal. I agree. I don't partake because the smell of weed makes my head hurt and it makes me, like, angry. Once I have a headache because someone stinks of weed, I get mad. Because, like, it's like, oh, cool, now I just have a worse day because of that, right? However, if, like, somebody, I don't know, gets stoned and, like, I'm talking to him or whatever, like, as long as I'm not getting a headache from the stench, I don't mind. And I know lots of people who smoke weed and don't really have a problem with it. They don't seem to be doing anything bad. Let's see, the prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. The prime function. I disagree. That is maybe a function ideally, but I don't know if it's the prime function. I think the prime function of schooling should be to educate the public so that the country doesn't become stupider than it already is. But I don't know. I think educating the public, preparing people for the reality of, like, becoming a working person when they're an adult, and also socializing people, like making sure that they know how to interact with people in public settings. I feel like that's very important, and unfortunately I feel like a lot of schools do not do very much to make sure that that's working, because, like, when kids are acting like shitbags, it often is kind of ignored, and it's not corrected. Like, there's no emphasis on correcting shitty behavior, so they get out into the real world as a shitbag and cause problems. But anyway, people with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. I disagree. I think that they bear a certain amount of responsibility to consider that if they want to have children. I don't think I ever want to have children because I have... Well, I don't know if my disabilities are inheritable necessarily, but the problems that I have, I would not want to give that to my child. But that's I don't think, like, the government should be, like, saying, like, you're not allowed to have children because your genetics are, not satisfactory or something. I feel like, for one thing, that opens the door to, like, weird stuff that I don't like the sound of, but also just on the surface, I don't like the idea of preventing people from that. Let's see, the most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. To, like, as in to be disciplined, like receive disciplining, or to have discipline. I guess I don't understand the way this is written. I don't think it's even the most important thing, regardless of either of those meanings. Having discipline is good, but I think there's other things that are maybe more important to making a person like sort of like well-adjusted and developed, I guess. I don't know. There are no savage and civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. I mean, I agree, but I don't. I don't respect all cultures equally. I know some super left leaning boys might raise an eyebrow at me and. Well, he said that he thought that all cultures were not equal. This means that he is racist, or whatever the fuck. I'm looking at Mustache Boy from the other day. But, yeah, I mean, like, you know, if there's, like, a fucking, like a small tribe somewhere that, like, murders outsiders and, like, eats them and tortures them or something, like, yeah, of course I'm not going to respect that. The same way that I would respect a society that strives for, like, peace or something. And then there's, you know, there's, like, cultures that you would consider civilized, I guess, in a certain meaning of the word, and then they're like they have shitty values and they love bad things, right? But anyway, those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society support. I agree. I am very much fine with helping people who can't work, right? If a guy gets his arms and legs cut off, obviously he's not going to be able to work productively. Excuse me. Pretty much any kind of job. So, like, yeah, you know, help him out or whatever. But if you're physically fit and you don't have like a crippling mental disease of some kind or mental disorder, I mean, then yeah, refusing to work is obnoxious in that context. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I think that might be case by case, right? When you are troubled is vague. I mean, I know these are fucking vague on purpose. But, you know, getting like into an argument with a friend over something dumb, like, yeah, maybe it's not best to like cling to that and make it into something bigger than it really was. But like, I don't know, if your fucking mom died, I don't think that's the time to be like, oh, let's just, you know, think about cheerful things. It's like, that's not that kind of situation. I'm actually going to say disagree. Because I think there are a lot of situations where you do need to think about whatever the problem is and not just ignore it. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. I'm going to say disagree. And here's what I think about that. There are people who are born into a country that their family has lived in for fucking 30 generations and they don't fit in within their society, right? So if somebody moves to a country first in their family line and, you know, they're it doesn't have to be English, they could be going to any country, but like their grasp on the local language isn't the best. They have like a noticeable accent and everyone can kind of tell like, oh yeah, they weren't born here. I don't think that that's like a problem as long as they're, you know, not like just being a problem to the population that they're now a part of, right? Like, don't move to a country and then just be a shitbag to like the local culture and social norms and stuff. You should be able to try to fit in. And if you can't, then you shouldn't have moved there, I guess. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. Disagree. I guess it would depend on what the good was, but corporations, like what's good for them is not applicable to like people a lot of the time. Let's see here. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. I disagree. Because there can be like an educational channel, right, where they make like nice content to help children engage in like intellectual curiosity and be like, oh, we get to learn about a thing, right? And it's like, just friendly like local broadcasting or something, or even nationwide broadcasting. But like, yeah, if it's not like political in nature, and also if it's not like news oriented, especially, I don't see the problem. Next page. Let's see how you see wider society. Okay. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. I don't know how true that is nowadays, but I know, like, after 9/11, right, a lot of stuff was going into the works. I'm going to say I agree. I'm curious about the current day perspective on that, because I'm sure there's tons of, like, policies that, if brought up, I would probably put to strongly agree, but for now, I mean, like, my life hasn't been specifically impacted, as far as I know, by this type of thing, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, of course. I'm not an asshole who's like, well, it doesn't bother me, so it's not a problem. Let's see here. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. Now, I guess it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about like a dictatorship where one person is making the decisions, that's one thing. If we're talking about there's only one party, but people within that party are still like making decisions, I don't think that would help as much as it might seem, because you have you know, variations within a political party. Like, there could be two people who are, identified as like Republicans, and they could have extremely different beliefs on very serious things. So I don't know. It depends on what we're talking about. Is it literally just a one party system, or is it a dictatorship system where there's not really a party? It's just the will of the ruler. Because if it's the will of the ruler situation, then yeah, there's not going to be any arguments, because what they say goes. But if it was just like there's only Democrats, right, in the United States, and there was no other parties, there would still be arguments, certainly. Because, yeah, there's not a uniformity in political party. I'm going to say disagree. Okay, although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Well, no, disagree. Because you'll have that attitude until they start introducing more things, and eventually it will start to become a problem, right? The death penalty should be an option. Yes, strongly agree. If you do something bad enough, I think we should be able to take you out. I totally believe that. I think it should. I think it could even be extended to. This might not be a popular opinion. I don't know. I think, like, even if you've done crimes that don't involve killing people, I think if they're bad enough, you maybe should still get the death penalty. Like, if they're bad enough. And what I mean is, like, if you have a guy who has, like, relentlessly been molesting children at, like, a daycare that he runs for, like, 15 years, and he's molested hundreds of children, kill him, right? Get him in jail, put his ass on death row. I would not shed a fucking tear of any kind of concern, right? Like, get rid of him. As far as I'm concerned. I know that might be a little extreme for some people. I don't care. Let's see here. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. I don't think that's... I guess, what do we mean by civilized society? Because maybe in a situation where... This is one where, like, I would need an example or context of, like, what counts as a civilized society. Because if you go on a smaller scale, I don't think anyone has to be above anyone else. If people are, like, of the right mind, I don't think people have to be, like, commanded as such. But I don't know. I don't think it's like the only possibility. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. I strongly disagree. You could make a painting that is kind of nonsensical, and even the artist doesn't think it means anything. It's just a painting they made that they like, like they think it's like an interesting visual. That's fine. It doesn't have to mean anything, I don't think. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I do disagree. I know I made a pretty strong statement about like executing super pedophiles, but depending on what the crimes are and what the person's psychology situation is, there are people who can absolutely be rehabilitated, right? But there are some people who can't. And yeah, in that case, I mean, I don't know. Well, I guess, okay, the next statement. It is a waste of time to try and rehabilitate some criminals. I strongly agree. There are some people who I don't think you could fix no matter what. I don't think there is any viable way to fix certain people. Right? With the best possible resources available, I don't think you could have like made Charles Manson into a normal person. I don't think it would have been possible. But anyway, the business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Now, I'm going to say disagree, but not because I think writers and artists are more important. I don't value this kind of question or statement. I keep saying question, not questions. Let's see here. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be housemakers. I disagree. Parents have a job together to be responsible for their home. I don't think there's anything about being a mother that means that your husband doesn't have to help you, do stuff. Like, if you both work, then yeah, you should both be doing shit at home too. Like, I don't know. That doesn't seem reasonable to me to be like, oh, well, you both have jobs, but for some reason she has to work even more. It's like, why? Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed the warnings of climate science that growth is detrimental to our efforts to curb global warming. Well, I feel like this is a weirdly set up situation because economic growth, I don't think like climate science is about stopping economic growth. It's about stopping growth that is detrimental, right? Like, it's dependent on the situation, right? If you have a situation where you can increase economic growth, but it doesn't actually have any negative impacts on the environment, then yeah, this wouldn't apply. But, I don't know. This is such a weird one. I don't know how to answer this, honestly. I guess agree? I don't know. Now, we should heed climate science, but is that climate science's warning? I don't know that that is like universally true, but I'm just gonna agree because I don't know. There's no like option of like I don't like this question because it's weird. It's not a question. Fuck, I keep saying that. Making peace with the establishment is an important part or important aspect of maturity. Of maturity, I don't know about that. I don't think it's inherently immature to not be happy with the establishment. So I'm going to disagree. I think to a certain extent you should make peace with certain things. And, maybe work in like a grander scale to try and like reform the establishment. But I think like being bitterly upset about something like all the time and just constantly having like that switch on in your mind of like this political thing is like the worst thing ever and I'm like focused on it with all my body and soul. I think that's bad for your health, but yeah, the way that this is phrased, an important aspect of maturity. I don't think it's mature to just accept how things are. I don't think that's inherently immature or mature. It's like a separate thing entirely. Okay. Astrology accurately explains many things. No, no, absolutely not. Being born in a month, I don't think has any influence on your personality in any way, shape, or form. I've never understood that. Um, Astrology is always about broad strokes, so you'll catch a lot of people, but I mean, like I'm friends with a person who is the same astrological sign as me, and we're very different. We're still friends. We're not like so different that we can't be friends, but like, the typical traits or whatever don't apply to both of us. You cannot be moral without being religious. Strongly disagree. I do not believe that that is necessary. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. I disagree. People are charitable to certain things, certainly, but people are also not charitable to things that they don't like. So, if you had like unpopular opinions or something, does that mean you shouldn't get any help? Just because you're like fucked over by a circumstance of birth or like some kind of accident happened and you can't work, you just have to hope that there is somebody who will be charitable to you. I don't think that's a good idea at all. Some people are naturally unlucky. I don't really believe in the concept of like luck at all. I mean, there's like, things will happen like circumstantially. Like I've had bad, terrible things happen to me. I don't think it's because I'm unlucky. It's just like, unfortunately, these are things that happen to me, right? Like, I don't know. I don't consider like luck to really be a thing. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Disagree. I think that if you want to raise your children religiously, you can do that. You should not try to make it part of other people's experience. Like you can have whatever religion you want. I'm personally I'm an atheist, but like I don't mind other people being religious, but don't try to like force it on other people's children. That's crazy. Okay. Oh, look at sex. Let's see. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Disagree. It's the only kind I've ever had, and it's fucking great. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Yeah, of course. That kid, Gabriel, I can't remember his last name. There was like a Netflix documentary about it. Actually happened in a city that's right next to mine in Lancaster, California. That poor kid went to live with his like gay uncles for a little bit, and then his mom was like give him back, and then she and her boyfriend fucking killed him. Right? Like that kid clearly would have been better off with the gay uncles. That is this fucking most awful story, by the way. I wish I could remember his last name. It's Gabriel something. That documentary was rough. I watched it when it came out because I knew about that beforehand, and yeah, that was brutal. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Yeah, I agree. Let's see. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business's state. Agree. No one can feel naturally homosexual. What? I mean, yeah, obviously I disagree. There are animals that are homosexual. I think that naturally destroys the naturally argument. Anyone who says that it's unnatural, it's like, well, why do penguins have, gay relationships? It's like the argument of whether it's natural or not is completely pointless and stupid. Anyway, these days, openness about sex has gone too far. Now, surprisingly, maybe, I might agree. Because there's people who, like, their fucking Twitter username includes, like, what fetishes they're into and shit, and it's like, I don't know why you need to have that, right? Like, I'm not saying you can't, but it is just like, I don't know, it's a little, it's a bit much sometimes how much people need to bandy about like what they're up to. For me, this question is not necessarily about like sexual orientation, but it's like definitely like you'll see just like people will be having a normal Discord chat, and then one weirdo shows up and it's just like thrusting the conversation into their particular like fetish neighborhood, and it's like, I mean, you can talk about those things with people who want to, but I don't know. It's very weird when people are super public about it. All right, let's see where I end up. The starting point of the original political compass was in 2001 when we recognized the inadequacies of the standard political measure left-right. Well, yeah. It's certainly fine for discussing economics, but to this day it's still widely and wrongly used to describe social attitudes. France's National Front, for example, is popularly described as far-right, yet its economic policies have sometimes been to the left of even the French Socialist Party. That's interesting. The party's real extremism is in its social attitudes. That's why we added a social scale. Okay, so there's authoritarian left, authoritarian right, libertarian left, libertarian right. Okay. Okay, so the economic one is left to right, and then the social one is up and down. Okay. Nevertheless, the more nationalistic and authoritarian a party or individual is, the more right-wing they're still labeled. Okay. This, of course, is absurd. Taken to its logical conclusion, it means that the further left a country sits, the more socially liberal its attitudes are. On that basis, North Korea must be a shining model of human rights and social freedoms. Yeah, it is funny how, people love to be like, they love to bring up, right, like, this party was like, it's like the most extreme version of the left, so obviously leftists are like equivalent, I guess. People, right-wingers like to do that with like, left is like fascism, so leftists like Hitler or whatever, and it's like that's absurd. It's true that like the simple left-right thing is not really enough. So let's see. Conversely, a country may be very right-wing, i.e. libertarian, in its economics, and be authoritarian at the same time. Singapore is a perfect example. I don't know anything about Singapore. The Index of Economic Freedom, produced by the Wall Street Journal and the Conservative Heritage Foundation, hails Singapore as the economically freest nation on Earth in 2021. Really? Interesting. On the social scale, however, it's a very different story. Human Rights Watch details its reasons for finding Singapore a deeply authoritarian state. Take a look at a few contrasting nations on this chart. Okay. So we got North Korea over there, Saudi Arabia over there, Switzerland, Uruguay. Okay. Uruguay is currently rated the world's 44th most free country. I gotta pause to take a drink. My throat hurts. Jesus. Okay. And a leading Latin American light in social freedoms. From gay and lesbian rights to legalization of cannabis, Switzerland also has a high rating as a libertarian economy, while at the same time providing a wide range of social welfare programs in common with the Nordic states and a number of other Western countries. With the exception of its Hong Kong region, China maintains strong economic controls, though fewer than those associated with a more orthodox ruling Communist Party. In recent years, China has shifted closer to the totally repressive social climate of North Korea, where the economy is also under the absolute control of the state. Saudi Arabia has veered further towards a libertarian economy in recent times, but with no real relaxation of its sweeping authoritarian powers. My thing. Okay, I figured I'd be like left-leaning, so I am right there. Yeah. Okay. That's kind of where I thought I would end up. So there you have it. We have it right here. This is where I am. And, it's funny because there are people who would end up in this same grid, and they would look at some of the things I believe in. See, there's a lot of things that this didn't address, right? For example, we're going to switch over so I can just close the browser. There's a lot of things that weren't addressed, maybe because they're too specifically about America or whatever, or maybe because of other reasons. But yeah, like there was no thing about like gun control or certain other things. So I think one thing that I certainly disagree with left-leaning people on, like certain left-leaning people, right, is like gun control. Because I do believe in some level of gun control. So I think right-wing people might have something of a problem with my stance, but left-leaning people wouldn't like it either. Because, like, I like some guns, and for right-wingers it'd be like, no, all guns. Like, super right-wingers, I mean, obviously, like people who are really, really extreme about it. And then, like, more extreme left-leaning people would say, like, no guns. And I'm like, well, what about some guns? Right? Or, like, guns, but, like, we really have like a good system for making sure that we're not giving them to like fucking lunatics as best as we can, right? Sometimes you're not going to be able to figure it out until it's too late, but you know, you gotta do the best that you can. But anyway, yeah, I've just been thinking about politics lately because watching the video that we watched on stream the other day about In Praise of Shadows, where he was really trying hard to make Wendigoon seem like the most bad person ever, which was... that was an experience. It just reminded me, like, you know, I see all these people, like, talking about, like, you know, dumb leftist slanders Wendigoon, and it's like... it's frustrating, because it's like, I am a leftist, I suppose, but I'm not, like, that guy, right? And it's like, I don't have a true place to sit, because people for some reason love to like shit on centrists. I feel like I'm more close to centrism than like certainly like far leftism, because like In Praise of Shadows would have like a lot of problems with me, right? And I have a lot of problems with him, obviously. I really hate that video that he made. It was so bad for so many reasons, and it's like, fuck, where do I go? Right, I don't have the requisite beliefs, the perfect pure beliefs to be like in with like, you know, a lefty crowd, and I don't have the perfect pure beliefs to be with a right wing crowd. Certainly because I'm closer to the left, but you know, it's just frustrating because it's like I don't fit in. But I guess that's not important. That's going to be the lesson today, is that it's not so important to fit in if you have a problem with the things that there are to fit into, right? I'll be part of a looser, more informal group where it's like, yeah, I'll have my disagreements with people, but I don't like this all or nothing attitude that a lot of people have. I don't like this crap where it's like, you know, to be on our team, you have to have this perfect checklist, and if you don't follow the checklist perfectly, then you're out. You're one of them now, right? And it's like, well, they don't like me either, so I can't be one of them, right? But yeah, some people are just so fucking crazy now. They're so extreme. They're just like, their entire life is consumed by a desperate need to signal their politics in every conceivable situation. The guy can't just be sitting around letting Wendigoon do his thing. He has to like dig in and find out why he has to hate him, and it's so weird, so forced, so bizarre. But anyway, yeah, we took the test. We're done. So yeah, I'll see you guys later. Hope you have a nice day, and I'll be back to do something else another day. But I work tomorrow. So